Hey guys, I'm getting everything all set up and ready. I think we are live. Woohoo! Hello everybody, I'm so glad you guys are here today. My name is Nicole Schlechter with Nicole Schlechter Advocacy. As you can see, we are in different surroundings today. My internet continues to be an issue, and I spent over an hour on the phone with Comcast today trying to get that worked out. And we still have no solution, so my wonderful mother, who might be watching, is allowing me to use her dining room table while she is at my house watching my kids for me. So everybody give a shout out to my mama for being amazing and helping me out while I figure out my whole internet situation. If you guys are new here, my name is Nicole Schlechter Advocacy. I am the mom of 4. My oldest son has autism, ADHD, and anxiety. And I started this journey a few years back after experiencing a really difficult situation with our homeschool. And I left that situation feeling really lost and overwhelmed and confused. And went through depression afterwards, just after coming out of a crisis situation. That's kind of how my body recovered. And I left that situation thinking, I never want another parent to feel the way that I felt. And I never want another child to experience what my child experienced. So I started this journey to help you guys, taking what I already knew about special education and just making it more directed to other parents. So I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. Go ahead, give this video a like, comment, and share so we can make sure that all the parents who need this information are getting the details that they need. So tonight we're talking about before, during, and after the IEP meeting. Keep an eye out in your email. Tomorrow morning you'll be catching a replay of this, and also the materials that we talk about tonight I'll be emailing out to everybody. If you guys are still looking for some IEP support, feel free to schedule a one-on-one consultation with me, but also go check back in my videos. There are quite a few live videos that we've been doing, especially the last 2 months, all about remote schooling and IEPs to get you guys the help that you need to feel confident this upcoming school year and beyond, right? So gone are the days, guys. I'm putting this out there. We're going to put it out in the universe. There are no longer are you going to sit at the table feeling unsure what you guys are talking about. You will never feel blindsided again after tonight when you sit at the table and you don't know the topics of conversation. There are no more, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's next. Tonight is the end of that for all of you, and I'm really excited. If you guys have not watched my past videos, this is definitely a really important one for remote learning and beyond. We aren't talking about remote learning tonight. We are talking about IEPs in general. So the information that you guys are going to learn tonight is going to be applicable to your child's entire IEP journey. This is very important information, and I'm so glad you guys are here. So again, I started this journey because I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't know what was next. I sat at a table and everybody seemed nice and friendly, and we got along and we had great rapport, and when I would ask a question they'd have an answer, and I didn't push for it because I felt like I trusted my team to do what was best for my child. And looking back, that was not necessarily the right move for me. I think that they had his best interests at heart a lot of the time, but I also think that they didn't know what I knew about my child. So I used to work in special education, and I still felt confused and blindsided and just overwhelmed when I sat at the table. So if you guys haven't read our full story, you can head over to my website. It's up there. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of you have similar stories of struggle with special education that we have. So my goal as a master IEP coach and advocate is to make sure you don't feel the way that I felt and your child doesn't experience what mine did. Ooh, I don't know what just happened. My screen went all funny. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about the must-dos, what you need to be doing before, during, and after an IEP meeting. We're going to create prepared and confident parents tonight, and I, again, am so glad that you guys are here. By now, some of you guys have been following me for a minute, And you probably know what the first thing is that I'm going to tell you guys. And if you don't know, now you do. Ask for a draft copy before your meeting. This is an IEP thing for sure, but this also applies to 504 plans, 504 meetings. So ask for any kind of evaluations, any kind of data, any drafted goal, anything that they have like that. Behavior intervention plans, guys, this applies to all of those things. If they are making changes, you need a draft copy of those changes. The IEP is, in theory, a document that should be drafted together at the table. It's a working document. We work on it as a team, but we live in a really busy world, right? And realistically, the team is at home working on drafting goals and reviewing evaluations ahead of time before the meeting. And if they have information that you don't have before a meeting, you're not an equal IEP team member. You're walking in blindsided at the meeting. So drafts are not a bad thing. It's great for them to be able to draft and like change things as we go. It gives us the chance too, when we ask for that draft, to review everything prior to the meeting. IEP meetings are emotional for us parents, and reviewing the draft before your meeting gives you a chance to kind of soak it all in, write down your thoughts before you're being put on the spot at the IEP meeting. So make sure you guys are asking for the draft. What else do you need to be asking for? You need to be asking for an agenda. I love, I'm so nerdy about IEP meetings, but I love when I sit down at an IEP meeting and they hand me an agenda. I'm like, if I was a cartoon character, there'd be like all those little love bubbles above my head. I love getting an agenda. I get so excited to see what the schedule of topics is. What are we going to discuss at the table? I love seeing that stuff. Asking for the agenda ahead of time prevents you from feeling blindsided when you're sitting at the table. Do they want to add in services? Great, put it in the agenda. Do they want to discuss placement change? Great, put it in the agenda. If you have the agenda and you aren't sure why you're talking about a topic, ask before you get to the table. Can you give me a few details? Can you provide me with the data on why we need to talk about speech minutes, for example? I'm going to try and do meeting questions as we go over here. But if I miss yours, just hold on. I'll get to it at the meeting, I promise. Antoinette says, my district will not provide me with my son's IEP draft. So then you respond in an email, always in writing, to the team. As an equal IEP team member, I need the same information as the rest of the team prior to the meeting so that I can be prepared at the table. If you cannot provide me with a draft copy, we will reschedule this meeting until you can provide me with the draft copy of the IEP. It is not law, but it is some information that you need to have. Like the school team has the opportunity to review all of these documents before they get to the table. Like your speech therapist and your social worker and your special education teacher, they're not sitting down at the meeting and reading all that stuff right at the table. They're reviewing it ahead of time so that they're prepared. And you're an equal IEP team member, so you get the same information. If they will not provide you with the draft, we reschedule until you can provide me with the draft. It's okay if that draft doesn't, like if you're in an initial eligibility meeting, the draft might not include IEP goals because we can't predetermine eligibility, right? We need to determine eligibility as a team together, but they can provide you with evaluation data. They can provide you with draft copies of what they think things might look like. That's okay. You get the same information that everybody else has. Okay, so back to agendas. Ask for an agenda. Agendas are awesome. Especially if they're like really pushing back on giving you that draft. Okay, you can't give me a draft, give me an agenda. What are we talking about here? That way you are prepared for the meeting. Again, we're creating prepared and confident parents here. Sarah says, this is helpful, special education teacher. Hey girl, I'm like really excited tonight. I don't know if you guys can notice. Even in my other meetings, I'm not as peppy as I am tonight. I'm like really excited tonight. So, Hope to be able to find this video later when I have some time to review it. After I get done talking and being crazy on this video, go back to my page under videos. It will be in there. Also, if you've registered for this class through Eventbrite, I will be emailing it out with all of the links that you guys need to. So what's next? What do you need before, during, and after your IEP meeting? Make sure you guys are grabbing, I put a link in the title of this video, your IEP Parent Guide. This is a tool that I have pinned to the top of the page. It's in the link, but it's a free tool that helps you as a parent ask the right questions when you're reviewing the documents and while you're sitting at the IEP table. You can literally print it out and bring it to your IEP meeting with you, and that way you know what questions to kind of ask. You can read the IEP all day long, but unless you're asking the right questions and you know what you're reading, it doesn't matter, right? So I created this list of questions for you guys to be able to bring to the table and say, can you answer these questions for me as you go? Looks like we have a lot of special education teachers in tonight. I'm excited. I love when I get educators in here too. This is being recorded, Nina. It will be available under videos and also will be emailed out. So grab your IEP Parent Guide. I will be emailing that link to everybody so that they can grab it after the meeting, but it's also up in the title of this video. Next thing we're going to talk about to make sure that you have to make you feel prepared and confident is creating your parent input statement. We did a live about this last week, going over parent input statements in depth and why they're important. So I'm going to keep this brief. If you need more detail on it, head up to videos and check those out, or leave me a note in the comments and I'm happy to answer questions for you. But did you guys know there is an entire section in the IEP that is just for your input? That's it. It doesn't necessarily have to go in present levels. It doesn't go in the notes. We want it in the parent input statement because when a stranger is picking up your IEP, a new educator, we want to know as a teacher what is important to the parents. What is your goals? What are your goals? What are your concerns? What are the important things that we need to know as an educator to make sure that we're addressing in the IEP? Did you guys know that? I know a lot of people saw the last video, but like I didn't know that that was there, and my IEP was blank in that section for years because I had no idea. There are tons of teachers that don't even know this is a thing. So this is a thing. If you're a teacher, please tell your parents about it. It is important information for you to have as an educator, but it's really important for a parent to be an equal IEP team member. If you guys think about it, you sit at the table and everybody goes around the table and they say, you know, they give their present levels and they talk about their goals and their related service minutes and they talk about what they know about your child. The parent input statement is your chance to do that. This is your chance to be the expert on your child at the IEP table. So you want to prepare this ahead of time and then email it to the team before the meeting. But you guys let them know that you want that added to the IEP also. But you can print it out and read it at the meeting. Like, there's no reason you can't do that if, you know, you feel like you're not going to remember everything. Printing it out, reading it in the meeting, pulling it up on your phone, reading it in the meeting, totally acceptable. You want to make sure you're adding your long-term and short-term goals. So what do you want accomplished this year? Where do you see your child going after school? Like after high school's over? What are your kind of long-term goals for them? And then any concerns you have. Also, any other helpful information that the team needs to know about your child. We want to keep it less than a page and use bullet points if you need to. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to write a novel. We just want to like be really direct and to the point. These are the important things that we need to talk about. These are my goals for my child. When you write down your concerns and you give them to the team and they add them to the IEP, they have to be discussed at the IEP meeting. So if there's something that you're concerned about, write it down, put it in the parent input, and give it to the team ahead of time so they can be added to that agenda that we talked about earlier. So the next thing we're going to talk about is writing out your questions on the IEP draft or on, you know, whatever paperwork you've been given ahead of time. You want to prepare your questions ahead of time and type them, you know, in a notes app. Write them down using old-fashioned paper and pencil. I like to print out my IEP draft and write down my questions directly on the paper, and I do it in like fun colored ink so that it stands out and it's like easy for me to read. That just helps me when I'm in the meeting so that I'm like not searching for stuff that I want to ask. But it helps me ask the questions that I have as the meeting goes along, because most likely you're going through your IEP meeting like down the draft, right? So you're going to start with present levels, and then you're going to move on to parent input, and then you go on, you know, to annual goals and related services and so on. So if you have questions as you go throughout the IEP and you write them, you know, in the margin of the paper, it kind of helps you figure out how to fit it into the table, and that way you're not backtracking at the end of the meeting also. The other thing you want to do during the meeting is bring a friend. That doesn't mean that you have to bring me or another advocate or master IEP coach, but you want to bring a second set of ears. Bring the mailman. It doesn't matter who it is. But don't do the IEP alone if you can avoid it. I am available for one-on-one coaching, and that includes meeting attendance, but having a second set of ears at the meeting with you is great for support, but it also brings a different kind of perspective. They might be able to ask questions that you haven't thought of, or they'll remember things after the meeting when you have a question about things. Bringing somebody else is really important, I think. It is emotional and overwhelming as a parent of a child in special education. Even when things are, you know, at their best, it's still really easy to feel like that. So having somebody with you to support you and make sure that everybody's following the plan and doing everything that they can to meet your child's unique needs, I think is really important. You also want to be taking your own notes at the IEP meeting, or recording with sound the IEP meeting. The team will need to know if you're going to record with sound 24 hours of notice. Some states, I think it's 48 hours, but for the most part, it's 24 hours notice if you're going to record, so that they have the opportunity to do the same. But sometimes you need to look back at the notes to remember what's discussed, and so having your own notes is helpful. But we also want to review the IEP notes that are added to the IEP that somebody's taking at the meeting after the meeting, and compare to your own notes so that you can take your own account of what happened and just compare them and make sure that everything is compatible. If you see or find any discrepancies, email the team to ask for clarification as soon as possible. Please don't assume that they are have tried to do you wrong and did it on purpose. People are human. They're typing as they go. It's hard to take notes at an IEP meeting when things are moving really quickly, or you have somebody like me who talks really fast. So just ask for clarification. At the meeting, this was my understanding of what happened. Can you clarify what was discussed or what we decided on? So lastly, you want to make sure that you schedule a follow-up meeting afterwards if you need to. So what is the communication plan the communication of the new plan going to look like? Do we need a follow-up meeting? Especially if you've made big changes, it can be important to discuss the progress after 6 or 8 weeks to see if the plan needs to be adjusted or if it's working well. If it's working well and everybody's in agreement and nobody has any concerns, there's no reason necessarily to have that meeting. But it's definitely okay to say, hey, I'm not necessarily comfortable with the changes. I feel really nervous, and I want to schedule a follow-up meeting in 6 to 8 weeks to discuss where we're at with this plan, if it's working or if it's not. And if it's not working, it's totally okay to adjust it. That's the great part about an IEP, is a fluid document and it changes all the time. So I want you guys to feel confident in what you know about your child. I know that this was a short live tonight. I'm going to go back through and I'm going to answer all the questions, but these are just really important tips for you guys to know so that you feel confident and prepared when you are going into an IEP meeting. I still have a few openings left for IEP assessments this year. I still have 2 kids that haven't started school yet, so once that happens, my schedule is really going to change. Go ahead and grab an IEP assessment now, and you guys can save it for your next meeting, even if it's in the spring. And we can schedule a time to talk one-on-one and discuss what your goals and concerns are before I review your IEP draft. I really like to know what's important to parents because I feel like that gives a whole new perspective to what needs to be in the IEP, what needs to be addressed. I can't tell you how many times I read an IEP and some of the parents' concerns just aren't being addressed, or they aren't thinking of things from a life skills perspective, and we're all focused on academics. And we want to be focused on, you know, all sorts of things when we're talking about the IEP. Further education, independent living, employment, that is all part of IDEA law, and we should be addressing all of that within your IEP. So in the assessment, you're going to get 3 ways minimum that you can adjust your IEPs right now to make the most progress possible this year. So if you guys are ready to maximize progress this year, let me know in the comments and we can get connected to work together. Like I said, keep an eye out for the link to the replay for this video and the link to the IEP Parent Guide in your email. And I'm going to be announcing new live chats this weekend. I just haven't had a chance to plan them out and schedule them for you guys. So I'm going to go back through the comments real quick, make sure that I've got everybody. Let's see. My son's school does the IEP separate after our meeting. We get no say on goals, which is obviously not okay. We formally disagreed and been ignored. Esther, that is, you're right. That is absolutely not okay. You are an equal IEP team member. So you already have a meeting, and then do they change things after your meeting? This might require like a more of a one-on-one kind of conversation. So send me an message and kind of give me the rundown so I can kind of understand what's going on a little bit more in detail so I can help you out. Melissa says, I have an IEP meeting tomorrow and I received the IEP, no goals though yet. Do I ask how they update goals if my autistic son has significantly progressed in ABA? Can they update goals based in their So outside therapy, so there is a difference between a medical diagnosis and medical recommendations and academic diagnosis and academic recommendations. So all of those outside therapies that you're doing, it's really important that you communicate any kind of progress or skills that you're working on with the team so that they can either work on them with the outside therapist or they can update progress and update goals from that. The difference between the academic and medical thing is that we have to take those skills that you're working on and figure out how they apply to the academic kind of environment. So sometimes the things you're working on in ABA therapy may not be worked on at school, which is okay. School's doing kind of different things. But if your son's made significant progress on goals that you have written in the IEP, they can absolutely update those based on what's happening in ABA. You just need to communicate that information with the team. So Valerie says that she knew there was a parent input statement. They asked to describe your child, what I feel will help him, my goals and aspirations. So I'm so glad, Valerie, that they have done that. But what I'm going to tell you is that when they are asking you that, I can almost guarantee it is not going in the parent input section. It's going into the notes. And what happens is that your important things that you're saying, because you are the expert on your child, is getting lost in the shuffle of the IEP notes. When somebody is coming through, a new teacher, a new educator, a new support person is coming through and they're reading the IEP, they're skimming the notes for the important stuff. When they flip open to that parent input statement and it's blank because your stuff is in the notes, they're not going to see what's really important that you know about your child, which is why we write the parent input statement ahead of time and send it to them and say, we want this added to the IEP under the parent input statement. But I'm really glad that they've asked you those things because I think parent input is hugely important at the IEP table. Antoinette says she has to remind the case manager to put that parent input in the IEP at every meeting. It gets lost. Sometimes it's lost in present levels. Sometimes it's lost in the notes, but we want it to go in the section that it goes in so that it's easy for everybody to see what is really important to us. Cassie says she gets an amazing form to fill out and it's always been added. I love that, Cassie. If you wouldn't mind like sharing what that form would look like, I would love to see it because I love to find out what other schools are doing, especially when they're doing them well, so that I can share it with clients that I'm working with and schools that I'm working with too. Antoinette was told by the district that there are no goals for students that are mainstream into general education classes. Goals are only put in an IEP when the child is a resource room. That is not true. My child is in general education and has 5 IEP goals right now as we speak. He is in one special ed classroom, and it is study hall so that he gets extra help with study skills. So that is absolutely not true. I'm sorry that you were told that. The IEP specifically is for annual goals, so there's another video. If you guys go, it's on my YouTube channel, I think. But there's a video that is discussing the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan. A 504 plan is just accommodations. So if you think about things like a step stool, and your child needs a step stool, a 504 is going to provide them with a step stool so that they can be as tall as everybody else in the class and see all the things that they need to see. An IEP is for annual goals to treat or to teach our children the skills that they need in order to climb that step stool to see what everybody else sees. So the difference is the accommodations in a 504 and the teaching of skills or the direct instruction that we get in an IEP. So in order to measure that we're teaching those skills in an appropriate way and our child is making progress, we have to have annual goals. I hope that was, I always like the step stool example because I feel like it makes a lot of sense to people. Cassie says she always takes notes. She loves how they make sure to inform me that they're keeping track. I love that, Cassie. It sounds like you've got a great team. Do you have any recommendations on specific accommodations to request related to online learning? Back in my videos on my YouTube channel, but Amy, I will also message it to you. There is an entire live video. It's about 40 minutes long about IEP accommodations for remote learning. Some of the things that we talked about were looking at the IEP accommodations that you have now and figuring out how to adjust those to a remote learning environment. A lot of those can be used and modified to a remote learning environment. Like my son has flexible seating in his IEP. He really likes to move when he's working. If he's moving, he's able to listen better. So he has a ball that he sits on. I can post a picture of it. Maybe I'll post a picture for you guys tomorrow. But he has like a exercise ball that has a stand on it, and that's what he uses instead of a chair. But he still gets extended test taking time. He gets longer time for assignments. He gets more time to respond when he's been asked a question. All of that is we're able to do through remote learning. A lot of the things that I'm seeing with people doing is, I saw this really cool one the other day. So how many of your kids are overwhelmed by the amount of links that they have to click on to get to each Zoom meeting, right? They're clicking back and forth between pages. Like, I'm overwhelmed, so I know that they're overwhelmed. One of the things that we've done is that we've clicked on those links ahead of time and opened them up in a separate tab. So then rather than going back and forth and figuring out how to do what, we just X out of that tab and then it automatically pops up with the next one. So that's been really helpful. Another thing that I've seen been really successful is creating one Google Doc of just Zoom links. So this doesn't include classroom assignments and things like this. This is a Google Doc, and it literally says math class, and then there's a Zoom link. ELA, Zoom link. And that way it goes by their period, and they know they can just go click on that Google Doc and click on the Zoom link. It's right there. It's easy to find. They don't have to go searching for it. Those kinds of things are more specific to remote learning that you wouldn't necessarily see in the classroom. So, Amy, if there's something specific that you need help with, I am absolutely willing to help and try and get creative with how, that works for you. Let's see. Laura says, my district sent a draft and then was using a different draft at the meeting. Oh my goodness. And also, if the meeting is paused for lack of time, can the district make changes without completing the meeting? No, we cannot make changes without an IEP meeting. So changes have to be made at the IEP table unless it's an addendum, which is an add-on that you don't have to have with an IEP meeting. But they should not be making changes without you being aware of them, because you're an equal IEP team member. And sometimes it just takes you saying that over and over again. I'm an equal IEP team member, and I need to know the information that you know. I'm an equal IEP team member, and if we're making changes, I need to be aware of them so that we can discuss them and make sure that they're appropriate for my child. Selena says, my IEP assessment is due 10/26, and they want to schedule the actual IEP meeting on that day. Does this prevent me from challenging things if I disagree or want further assessments or services? No. So there is this like misconception, and I feel like sometimes schools kind of put this out there, that your IEP is going to expire on that day. There are timelines that schools have to follow, so they would be out of compliance if they went further than that. But if they're scheduling the meeting on that day and you disagree with something, or they need further assessments, the IEP that was in play before that meeting is still going to be upheld after that meeting. They can't, like, it's not going to expire. I know a lot of people think that, but we're talking a little bit about executive functioning. I think I'm going to do a live specifically on ADHD and executive functioning coming up, and things like that. So if you guys are in for that idea, let me know what you guys think. I love talking about ADHD behavior, and that sort of thing is totally my jam. I love talking about stuff like that. And I feel like with remote learning specifically, executive functioning is a really hot topic right now, and is something really important for our kids to really be working on during this environment when they're left kind of to do a lot of things independently. Should schools be proving in writing what is the accommodations during remote learning for an IEP student? So some states are requiring some sort of remote learning plan being added to the IEP. However, if you're in a state that does not have that requirement from their Board of Education, they do not have to prove that they're doing these things in writing. However, if they're not, they should be following the IEP. So if they're following the IEP, then all the accommodations and all the goals and related services as written in the IEP should be applied to remote learning. What I've been advocating for is that parents request a specific remote learning plan added to their child's IEP by addendum. So again, we don't have to have a meeting for that. And what we do in that remote learning plan is we prioritize what is important right now. I was talking to somebody today who one of his IEP goals was is to self-advocate in a classroom when he needs help with something. This was the way that it was written is really hard to implement in a remote learning environment. So we've decided that we talked about if it was a priority right now. You want to be prioritizing what schools or what goals are important for us to be working on right now. That doesn't excuse the team from not working on the other stuff. We're just saying that this is what is important for us right now in a remote environment, and adding that to the remote plan. As far as accommodations go in a remote plan, a lot of that is going to look the same as it did in the IEP, but there might be some things added to that weren't in your regular IEP, like what kind of technology your child needs, or being able to turn their video off if him being on video makes them anxious, or not being called out in class and being able to reply in the chat box. All of those things are important. We talked about the Google Doc with the Zoom links on it. That would be an accommodation that we would add that maybe wouldn't be in your regular IEP. Is there ever a way to state in the IEP that the student needs therapeutic boarding school? So yes, that would be a change of placement, and it would go there, and that you guys would decide that as a meeting if that would be something that is appropriate for your child. Is there a list of goals? So there is no like master list. I mean, I guess you could Google and there's probably master lists of goals out there with all kinds of things for you to choose from. However, the reason that I don't have a master list is because each goal should be written to meet your child's unique needs. Not all children with autism should have this goal, or all children with ADHD should have this goal, or all children who are struggling with reading should have this goal. Your child's goals should meet their unique needs. And so we don't want to copy and paste from a master list. If we can avoid, you know, sometimes it's okay to use things like that and kind of adjust them as needed. But we don't want to be looking at a master list and picking and choosing what goals would fit our child. We want to create the goal to fit our child. Sherry wants a copy of the IEP parent guide. There is a link up in the top, Sherry. Otherwise I will, let me see, maybe I can reply to you right now and give it to you. Let me see. Nope, did not work. Okay, backtrack. I don't know what I just did. Okay, so Sherry, it's in the comments, or in the title of this above. And I will also message it to you afterwards. I gotta scroll back down. I clicked buttons and now I'm going crazy over here. Let's see. Okay, so Cassie's going to try and get me a copy of her awesome parent input statement form that her school gives her. I would love that, Cassie. Crystal wants the IEP parent guide also. I will get that to you. What are your thoughts on school districts' needs to ensure that a fully included student with ID and an IEP can access the general education curriculum? My son was a rock star in the actual classroom due to the context, peer, and teacher models in the moment feedback. He needs in the moment feedback, so he's on task, etc. Virtually, there isn't much of this. You're absolutely right. So this is where we kind of have to get creative. If remote learning is not working for your child, you guys need to be taking the data on that every day, and I want to see like hard numbers. Like, I needed to redirect my son 11 times within a 2-hour period. Here's what happened when we attempted to log into Zoom for our social work. In order to get to the Zoom link, it took, you know, this many minutes. That kind of data is really important to be showing to your team. Like, this is not working. What we're doing is not working. What are our options? I've seen some schools just giving independent work so that they're not required to do Zoom. I've seen some schools providing some walk-in services so that they're not required to log into Zoom. And walk-in services can be related services like social work or speech therapy or whatever, but it can also be like one-on-one or small group with the special education teacher to be able to like reteach and pre-teach that material that they're learning. It is just a matter of getting creative. I also have another school where we are asking for the school to pay for private ABA therapy instead of school, because school in a remote environment is not appropriate for the child that we're working with. So it really just depends on the school and what you feel like is going to be most appropriate. It just really takes a lot of creativity to figure out what's appropriate. And I think when you approach the school like, here's the hard data that shows this is not working for my child, what else can we do? I think that they're more open to like working with you and coming up with a plan because nobody wants a legal battle. Like, we all want to avoid legal battles, especially in this day and age. So I think like bringing them the data and showing, you know, the proof that this is not working and asking, you know, how can we work together to come up with a plan? I think schools are more willing to be collaborative with you in that kind of situation. Cheryl, I hope that that answered your question. If it didn't, feel free to message me. Cassie says that remote learning is stressful, day 3, and she's literally had tears every day. And we're only doing activities to get acclimated into the new learning environment. I am with you, Cassie. I totally get it. The first week that we had remote learning, we both cried like every day. It was hard. I hope that it gets better for you. If it doesn't, take that data, reach out, let me know. We can work together on this and figure out what we can do. Amy is all in for ADHD and executive functioning. Sherry is too. Do you have examples of behavioral plans? So actually up on my website, there is a 4-part series on behavior. We talk about behavior intervention plan, functional behavior assessment. We talk about classroom strategies. It is less than an hour long, just a 4-part video series plus examples of behavior plans and what can go into them, all of that for you guys to look at. You can grab that. It's on my website. I'll give you the link to it also after we get done with the live. Let's see. What if the school doesn't want to provide a remote learning plan? Well, then they have to follow the IEP, period, you know? And if the IEP isn't covering everything that your child needs in a remote learning environment, then we call an IEP meeting and we add it to the accommodations. I don't like to change the IEP in this kind of scenario, just because we want the IEP there for when we return to class. But if they're not willing to add the remote learning plan, which honestly kind of protects the school and makes things a little bit easier for them and protects your student at the same time, we call an IEP meeting and we change the IEP to make sure that your child's supported in the environment that we're in currently. Jamie wants the IEP parent guide. Jamie's also in for ADHD and executive functioning. I'm actually curious, is there a limit to how many kids with IEPs can be in one classroom? My son's in 2nd grade, and for the past years, they dump all the IEP kids into one classroom, and she slowly found this out over the last couple of years. So I don't know of any specific numbers, but what I would say that you should talk to the school about is how many positive peer models your child has in that classroom. Just because a child has an IEP in that classroom doesn't mean that they're not a positive peer model, right? All of our kids are working on different things in their IEP, so they can still be a positive peer model in their IEP. For example, my son, who is in a self-contained classroom for social and emotional for 2 years, that 2nd year, he was the positive peer model because he had made a lot of progress in his IEP goals and was doing really well and was really successful in the class, and he was the positive peer model. That doesn't mean that he didn't have positive peer models in his class, because there were other kids who were doing different things better than he was. So it was a great positive kind of model for him. So I wouldn't necessarily I hate that they're dumping all the IEP kids into one class. That makes it really hard on the teacher too. But I would ask how many positive peer models are in the classroom. We're not worried necessarily what is in the IEP and that they have an IEP. We're worried about how their needs affect our child's learning and accessing the curriculum sort of thing. So Esther asked for an IEP meeting in February, and we're still waiting. An addendum for COVID should be appropriate way. Okay, so Esther, if your IEP was due in February and you requested a meeting in writing, your school is not in compliance of following through with IDL law, and we need to have a conversation about that. Back in March, the Department of Education said that there are no waivers to special education and all timelines still apply. So if they're not following through with that meeting from February, you kind of need to hold them accountable for that, and I can absolutely help you with that. So I think I've got all the questions. I'm going to go back through and give you guys all the links of everything that you need. Like I said, check your emails tomorrow morning from me. You should be getting a replay of this and also all of the links that we're talking about today. And if you guys have not grabbed your IEP assessment, please go ahead and grab it, even if your IEP is not in the spring. Once my other kids start school, I don't know how many I'm going to be able to take on for IEP assessments, and I don't want you guys to miss out. Also, check back here. I will let you guys know when our next live events are scheduled. Looks like we're going to be talking about ADHD and executive functioning. So I will see you guys soon. Have a good night.